Welcome back to another great episode of Deac2Deac. In this episode, I have the opportunity to sit down with former NFL tight end and international motivational speaker, Desmond Clark. In this episode, Desmond Clark talks about his adversity that he faced growing up and how he overcame that, his new book, The 5 Principles of Winning, and what it was like to play in Super Bowl 41, plus much, much more. Stay tuned and don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on your notification button for your favorite podcast, Deac2Deac. Take a listen and go Deacs. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Deac2Deac, Desmond Clark. Des, how's it going, man?
Man, it's going good. If it was going any better, man, somebody have to come get me. But yeah, right now everything is moving forward. We made it in 2021. It was a long 2020, but we're blessed to be here. New year, new perspective, new outlook, and hopefully, man, this pandemic subsides a little bit so we can get back. We can get back to it.
That's great, man. Des, I wanted to go over all of your accolades, but it was really too much to fit into this time. So we're going to have a chance to talk about that and really jump into your book and talk about Des Clark Speaks. But Des, I want to start from the beginning. And you share a lot about this in your book. Kind of talk about where you're from and what it was like growing up in Lakeland, Florida.
Yeah, man. As you said, I grew up right here in Lakeland, Florida, where I'm sitting at right now as we do this interview. So I'm happy to be home. First time living here in like 25 years. So it's been really special to get back and just be around my family. But, you know, that early life, up until about the 7 years old was really good, man. You know, mom and dad in the house. We had just about everything that we could want, but at a certain time, all of that switched over and life became a struggle. Mom and dad, they separated. And, you know, from that point on, it was a struggle because, you know, my dad, he was a breadwinner. And once he got addicted to crack and that kind of took over his life and his focus, you know, it was just a downward spiral for me and my brothers and my mom. And we had to scrape and get by. And some days it's like, it ain't nothing else to scrape. But you know, we made it, man. We made it, and we look back at these times now, and we appreciate those times because me and my three brothers were all successful now, and we attribute a lot of that success to the pain and the struggle. And it just wasn't all pain and struggle. We had some good times as kids. We had more good times than bad. We didn't know that we were living in the bad times. We didn't really know that we were struggling like that until you look back at it. But, you know, we look back at those times and we're thankful for those times because it created who we are today, man. And we're blessed to have it.
So Desmond, considering what you went through growing up and being from Lakeland where, you know, football, when you're talking about sports, football, I mean, Florida's always been this hotbed of some of the best talent, period. So how did you get introduced to sports in Florida?
So I'm glad that you said that Florida is one of the best football hotbeds because we used to have this going on back when we was in college and nobody wanted, you know, y'all from North Carolina and this and that. And we got people from this state and that state. I'm glad at an older age, you're able to admit that Florida is the best football state in the world.
No, I was really just trying to be sympathetic
No,
to
you said
Paul since I got you on here, but I'm gonna let that slide. No, go ahead. I'm gonna let, if that's what you think, I'm gonna let it go. I said it. Go ahead though. I'm gonna let it go.
and I thank you for that. Dang, it took so long to get to that point. But no, man, I was introduced to football at the age of 6. That was my first year playing. It was tackle football back then, and I played this game from the age of 6 all the way to the age of 34. So the game of football for me, very early on in my life, was like a big part of my identity. It was a big part of who I was as a person, and just something that I could latch on to, that I knew that was going to be there. Well, some years I didn't know it was going to be there, and talked about that a little bit in the book. But that's something that I could look forward to. That's something that was an outlet for me to when we were struggling and other parts of life, I had football, you know what I'm saying? And we can always go. I had the coaches that I had, wonderful coaches, and football it just was, one of those things that if you're talking about being an architect and building like a building, man, football had to be like the wood, the frame of building who I am today.
Now, Desmond, what people may not know, what fans may not know, is you are great at basketball as well. And that was a large part of the other sports that you played. Basketball, you were really good at it. Now, there was something in your book that happened when you were on the basketball team and you were in high school, and there was an opportunity, but there was also a pact made with your team. Kind of talk about that and how that impacted you as a person.
Well, you got to bring up old stuff, man. Now, it is funny. It's a funny story because when I moved back here to Lakeland, we all the boys got together, right? and we finally talked about that. And it's funny because I wasn't the first person that they asked to come up from the JV. Like we had a stacked JV team. We were gonna, whatever JV championship it was, we were going to win it. No question about it. And it was a couple other guys that could have went and played varsity, but we all said we're not going to go up and play varsity. We know Coach Jones going to come down here. Coach Jones going to try to bring some of us up to varsity. Hey, it's in blood. We're not going up to varsity. So Coach Jones came and asked my homeboy Malik to come up to varsity. Malik said, "Nah, Coach, I'm straight." He came up and asked Ken Bridges, "Hey, Bridge, come on up to varsity, man." "Nah, Coach, I'm straight." Then he came and asked me, "Des, I see that hustle out there, man. We could use you on varsity." I'm in. I'm in. Hey, he didn't even have to convince me. But I already knew he had already asked those other two, and they said no. And I went and I was like, okay. The game before he asked me to come up, I think I scored maybe 20 points in the JV game. And the next day he came and asked me to go up. But for me, it was about this. And this is less for kids, grown-ups, anybody. You don't suppress yourself to fit in. You got to go for it. You got to take your chance. You got to take your shot. You shouldn't have to be less just to be in a group. Now, in the book, I talked about, did I do the right thing? I did the right thing. I just shouldn't have made that promise from the beginning. But the whole thing is about this. The biggest fears that we have is the fear of rejection or the fear of failure. And it was all about that fear of rejection, right? That if I say no, I'm gonna go up if he asks me, they're gonna dog me out. You know what I'm saying? But when I went up, they dogged me out then. But I'm on varsity now, so y'all can say what y'all want to say. But when he brought me up, I started, and I started every game that I played on varsity. So it was a good decision.
Do you regret the way you handled it or the decision? Or you don't regret it either? Which one?
I don't regret the decision at all. Because like I said, if I had the opportunity to play varsity, I'm going to play varsity. The thing that I regret is making that promise to my homeboys. You know what I'm saying? Because we tight. You know what I'm saying? And when you do that, you honor it. So at the age of 16, 15 or whatever I was, I wasn't a principal person at that point. But looking back on it now, I'm like, number one principle, all you have is your name and your word. And that was one time when I didn't live up to that.
Well, you also went through a lot during that time in life, and that helped. You were just trying to move forward and accomplish some things. Again, you were great at basketball and great at football. What ultimately was the decision that made you say, okay, I'm going to pick football. I'm going to ride this out, and that's what I'm going to use? What was that decision like?
Yeah. So I was all-state in both football and basketball. But when I started looking at the people who were recruiting me, I was getting recruited from a higher standard of school for football, right? Like I got a letter from Nebraska back then. Back then Nebraska, 95 with Tommy Frazier and all that. I'm like, man, I just got a letter from Nebraska. You know what I'm saying? I didn't get a letter from Duke to go play basketball, but I did have, some lower Division I basketball scholarship opportunities. And then, I think I just enjoyed football better. I just enjoyed it more. And it's not like I didn't enjoy basketball. It was just something about football that captured me. I played basketball because I was good at it. I love playing football. So it was just one of those things that looking at how I was getting recruited in both and just the passion and love that I had for football and, me just playing basketball because I was good at it.
Now, there's a picture in your behind you over your shoulder. There's a picture of you and your mom. And
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, that is from senior night in basketball. And there's a story behind that again in this book. And I don't want you to share totally everything in the book, but again, what does that night, what did that mean and the significance of that picture?
Man, hey, you act like you read the book or something. That picture, people gonna be able to see this? All right. I didn't know if it was just audio or not, but here's the picture that Smitty is referring to. But this is a picture that goes with me everywhere. I carry it everywhere because what that picture signifies for me, and my mom passed in 2015 from cancer. But for me, that picture signifies what she's all about. She was always there for us, no matter what type of struggles or whatnot. And as a Black mom, I I'm sure when she went back in the room, sometimes she was crying. She never let us see that. She was just strong. She was just, always positive, always moving forward, and she instilled that in us. But this, getting back to this picture, senior night basketball senior night, and you take the picture right before the game so you can have a senior night picture. And she wasn't there, and we're waiting on her. And coach was like, "Hey, we got to get the game started." So coach came out. He's like, "Let's just go out and take a picture, me and you." So we went out and took the picture, and we getting and they right just about to get ready to start doing the introductions. Boom, my mom came through the door. Boom, we ran out there, took that senior picture real quick, and you can see how beautiful she is, man. But for me, her getting there, like she was just getting off from work, single mom, got a ton of things that she got to get done, but she made sure that she was there for that moment. And it's not that moment. She was there for all the moments. Even in when I got inducted into the Hall of Fame in Wake Forest, she was going through cancer therapy at that point, and they advised her not to come. And she was there. That was October 17th. And she came because she said she wasn't going to miss it. And one of the things that weighed heavy on me is that a year later, she's dead. And I wanted that contribute to it. So it's like bittersweet. Like she's not going to miss it. She's not going to miss it. But, if it was me, I would have told her, no, you need to listen to your doctors. But she wouldn't listen to me either. But that's just who he was. And I talk about that in the book. But me and my brother, she was just always that stone. She was always there. Even when she wasn't there physically, she was like, she couldn't come to every game at Wake Forest, but she was there. And that's just what that picture signifies for me.
Man, that is wonderful because as you talk about that in the book, man, I saw a lot of my mom in that. And as a as an athlete and you're playing and you're representing a team, uh, you look for that support and what your parents go through to be there, and so I think it's great that you honored her and mentioned her in throughout your book and that picture, man. That's a great picture. I want to talk to you about uh, something else. You mentioned recruiting, being recruited. And so there was a lesson you mentioned about uh, when you made the decision to go to Wake, and there was a lesson you learned from going through that process at the end. Kind of talk about that phone call you had to make to Virginia Tech and what was surrounding that.
Before I talk about that phone call, I want to talk about another phone call because I think I mentioned something in the book about being homesick and not calling home because everybody else was calling home and you can hear them on the phone. I think you were one of those people
Wait, whoa,
that I was referring
wait a
to,
minute.
that I heard on the phone. And you from North Carolina, and I think you're one of those people that was on the phone talking about you homesick, this and that and the other. So I was like, man, everybody's making these phone calls on the phone, like just dying, like, oh man, I want to come home. Like, I'm not calling my mom because if I call her, I'm gonna be on the. She probably wouldn't let me come home. But I know I talked about that too. But going back to
you're right. But everybody mama was like that, and that's why I got even more homesick because I actually called, and my mama told me don't call no more. And that was the heartbreaking call to hear your mama say, don't you call me no more. You stay up there.
Yeah, but it was a bunch of people, right? It wasn't just you. It was we had 22 in our class, 22 people in our class of 23. It was like 22 or 23. It had to be half of the people calling home homesick on the phone, damn near crying on the phone. So yeah, so I was like, I am not calling home because that ain't gonna do nothing for me. But the other call that you're talking about, as far as the lesson that I learned, it came down between Wake Forest and Virginia Tech, right? And my brother's best friend, still his best friend, and he actually was a coach in Chicago. And I learned that he had a key to my mom's house when I didn't have a key to my mom's house as grown men. He went to Virginia Tech also. So that was a big selling point. Torian went there. He's excelling. But for me, it just came down to this. Virginia Tech wanted me as an athlete. And athlete means when you get here, we're going to find out where we're going to put you at. And I didn't want to play defense. That was the main thing. And safety was being thrown around because I wasn't 220 pounds during the recruiting. I was like 190. So it really came down to that. And Wake Forest is telling me, you're going to be a wide receiver, right? That's it. We're going to play you at wide receiver. And I thought that I could excel at receiver. And, the academics at Wake Forest were, say no more, right? But I had kind of told Coach Beamer that I was leaning that way with Virginia Tech. And I told him that I wanted to win. Because I told him it was, coming down to Wake Forest. And he was like, you're not going to win anything at Wake Forest. And I heard that winning is important to you. But when I ultimately made the decision, I went to my mom. I was like, all right, well, I didn't make the decision then. I was like, what you think? Wake Forest or Virginia Tech? She was like, it's your decision. And I was like, but what do you think? She's like, it don't matter what I think. It's your decision. And I was trying to get bailed out, right? Because I knew I wanted to go to Wake Forest, but I wanted to have a story of, me and my mom, we talked about it, and we chose Wake Forest. So that night I had to go ahead and call, and I had to let one of the two coaches know I wasn't going to go to that school. And I called Coach Beamer, and Coach Beamer, like, dude went off. He went off. Like, I effing thought you wanted to be a effing winner. You're not gonna effing win anything. And he was like, he went off. But after that phone call, I was like, oh, I made the right decision. And you know what? I'm not really that little moment of time. I'm sure that's not him as a person. That's just a little, 5-10 minute moment of time where he probably got out of character, because everything that I hear about Frank Beamer is he was a great guy, great coach. His players love him. But that little slice of time made me think I picked the right place. And then getting to know Coach Caldwell, you can't get a better guy, a better coach to play for. So that decision, it was the right decision. Everything worked out well. But, that was one of the first times that I was really faced with a real tough decision that I had to handle on my own.
So, Des, you get to Wake, And as you mentioned, we're in this huge class. It's like 23 of us.
Mhm.
And uh, Coach Caldwell comes during camp, and he pretty much red shirts everybody but you. What were your thoughts going into the first game you had an opportunity to play in as a true freshman? What was that experience like?
Scary. And then again, man, I'm in that same situation again. All my boys get redshirted, and now I'm playing. Like going back to high school, everybody's on JV, and I don't know. Quite frankly, I don't know. I guess it was just a need at receiver, because I don't think I was like more ready than anybody else to play. But no, going into those first games, especially Appalachian State, that was our first game, and just being in that atmosphere for the first time, and knowing that you're gonna play also. Like they didn't just have me out there, just send me on the bench. Like I was gonna play, and just having those nerves and jitters of being in a new situation and not knowing what to expect. So I don't think there's anything that really stood out that I should have been expecting or shouldn't have been expecting. I think it was the normal, hey man, this is a different situation. We're in the big times, I'm playing the ACC, and then we got our ass kicked by Appalachian State, which was man, like, oh, this is how this goes.
So there's you. I want to ask you this though. I've always wanted to ask you about one particular play, and it is one that stands out in my mind. And to me, I call it the Wake Forest catch, the catch. Kind of talk about it was against Northwestern, and correct me if I'm wrong. I'm getting up there. The memory goes, but it was against Northwestern. They had just come off winning the Big Ten. It was our second game of the season, and I think they may have been ranked somewhere, and they had Donnell Archer and some other good players. And so kind of take us through that last play, that game-winning catch that you made in the end zone. Kind of talk about that experience and what that was like, especially to feel the fans rushing out of the stands.
Right. So that year, they were not like highly ranked coming in. That's the year that they actually went on to go to the Citrus Bowl, or whatever it was that they went to. It was the next year that they came in highly ranked, and you was making all those jokes. So these dudes wear purple, man. You can't respect nobody who wear purple.
Yes, this I can't have you guys coming on if you're gonna keep calling me out like.
You can't respect. Hey, and then you remember? Hold on, you remember that second game because we had the tents, right? And because we were redoing the locker room. And you remember Coach Caldwell went off and jumped across benches and players, and I think it was John Lewis that he went over there and attacked before the game. I was like,
I forgot about that. I forgot about that.
Oh man, I was like, oh damn, Coach just lost it. Because he was always like cool. He was intense, right? But he was all cool, calm, and collected. And I don't know what triggered him to do that, but he just boom, it just went. I think it was John Lewis that he went and got in his face. I don't know who it was. It might. I don't know who it was. That name just comes to mind. It wasn't John Lewis because John was a senior when I was a freshman. Couldn't have been him. Whoever it was, I was like, oh damn, coach. But going back to that game, that was a 1996 season, and man, it's funny because Coach Fitzgerald, who's the coach for Northwestern now, me and him had a chance to talk about that game. He played linebacker on that team.
That is right. I forgot about that. Yeah, he was on that team.
Yeah, he played linebacker on that team, and they did have some pretty good players. But we battling, right? We battling, and Wake Forest at that time, we didn't have a good reputation as a football school. Northwestern didn't either. So it was like the battle of all the smart people. But I think they came into that season with high expectations because later on, this is after I retired from the Chicago Bears, somebody sent me a newspaper article in the Chicago Tribune, like tore them apart, saying how did they let Wake Forest beat them? And they got all these expectations of going to a bowl game this year, whatnot, which they ended up having a really good season. But for that second, third game of the season, I mean, they got ripped apart. So I don't think we were expected to play with them that year, at least from their perspective. But it was a back and forth game the whole time. And then you come down to the fourth quarter and, you know, it's like last minute drive. We got the ball and we call a post play. You know, I ain't no speedster or nothing, but I can make it happen. And they called that post and Kuklik put it up in the air. And it was just me in the corner. And if it's me in the corner, I'm 200. At that point, I think I'm 230 pounds that year. Look, I'm gonna go get it. And I caught that thing, and man, it erupted. It was 51 seconds left on the clock after I made that. We held on for that victory, and that was probably one of our. No, I think the Northwestern the next year was probably our best victory from when I was there. Y'all had great victories in 1999, but I had already moved on. But for me, beating Northwestern that next year, they came in ranked number 14 or 15 or something like that, and we tore that ass up again.
So, Des, I want to ask you something. What was your greatest, in your opinion, what was your biggest or your greatest, most impactful Wake Forest moment off the field? And I'm looking at your degree over your shoulder there, and you know, I want to automatically assume that, but I want to ask you, you know, what was your greatest off the field moment at Wake?
You know what? It's something like it that you would never expect. For me, just coming up, you know, here in Lakeland and just being around like a certain type of crowd, people. Um, when I got to Wake Forest, I was exposed to like different cultures, different ways of life, different people, different thought processes. And the greatest thing for me is not even the education. It's not even like sitting in the class and doing the work. The best education that I got at Wake Forest was this: learning how to understand different people. I mean, one of the first things that happened to me at Wake Forest where I was like, oh, okay, is like holding doors open for people. Like just like little stuff like somebody just said, oh, and then I'm supposed to hold the door open for them now. It's just like little things like that as you develop as a person, you know. I think that was the biggest thing for me is just, you know, you got Asians and Wake Forest is predominantly white. I had never been never ever in my life been in a situation where, you know, you got more white people than black people, and you're interacting with more white people than black people. And we still had black people there because we had us on the football team. But I just think, you know, now that I look back on it and I look at where I'm at now, I think that was the greatest education of learning how to understand and learn how to communicate and learn how to get along and develop relationships with all sorts of people.
So, Des, I want to talk about shift gears just for a little bit. Just we're gonna get back to. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about the role of your father. And in the book, you mentioned a commitment that he made, and how that impacted you. It was the day he stopped smoking, and what kind of give some background and what that day meant to you.
Yeah, so in the book, there's two episodes that is like a bookend of his story. And it starts with when I was 7 and he was shot that was the first time. That was the first time. And he came home, and the day that he came home out of the hospital, we went to Fort DeSoto Beach. Had a good time as if nothing happened. And then a short time after that, like that's when everything started falling apart. But now you fast forward to 1997, right? And I'm in college at this point, and it's his birthday, and we go to Fort DeSoto Beach for his 40th birthday. And while we're sitting there, You know, he's smoking a cigarette, having a drink, and just out of the blue. I mean, just totally out of the blue, unprompted. I guess it's in his head. And now he's been shot 3 times at this point. He's blind now from the third time he got shot with a shotgun. So he's a blind man. He's kicked his drug habit. At 1997, he was probably about 3 years clean at that point, in between 2 and 3 years. And so we're sitting on the beach. He's sitting in his beach chair and he's just having his drink. And then all of a sudden he's like, you know what? I'm 40 now, I need to quit smoking. Takes a drag of that cigarette, flicks it. He had a drink in his hand, right? He's like, well, if I'm gonna stop smoking, I might as well stop drinking too. Take a sip that, put it down. Never had a smoke or a drink since that day, July 4th, 1997. And it didn't hit me right then. It hit me later about how can someone, because you hear about people, you know, trying to quit this, stop that, do this. And, you know, there's different people, and I'm certainly not looking down at anyone who can't do this. But it taught me that all you have to do is decide. Really commit and decide. And no BS about, oh, I'm gonna try, I'm gonna do it. Like, if you really want to get something done, if you really want to accomplish something, if you really want to quit something or start something, just decide to do it, commit to it, get it done. And that moment in time taught me that. And now, me being older, I always tell myself, I'm not gonna lie to myself if I know I'm not really going to follow through on something or commit to something or whatever it is. When I tell you that I'm ready to commit to something, I'm ready to commit to it, or I'm not gonna tell you.
That's great, man. As I was reading that story in your book, man, it was really captivating, and it just made me think about the people in my life and their commitments, and it really made me examine my own commitments and understanding what they are. And so I appreciate you being, you know, very vulnerable in sharing that and what you learn from it. So Des, I want to go back to something else. Go back to your the wake part of your life and talk about you get to your senior year and draft day comes. And so you did get the call. You got the call, but was there ever a point where you felt that I may not get the call and get drafted? What was that day like going through that process?
My agent prepared me well, right? I'll just start there. He told me you're gonna get drafted in between the 4th round and the 6th round. He was like, if these Rufus French was one of the guys. He didn't even get drafted, and it was another guy from there's a guy from Washington and a guy from Ole Miss. I think the guy from Ole Miss was Rufus French. He was like, if these 2 guys go early, you'll probably go in the 4th, maybe 5th round. It's like if these guys kind of go later, it's like it's gonna be later on in the draft, maybe like in the 5th, 6th round. Those 2 guys didn't get drafted. And coming into the draft, they were the big talk. So when I seen that, I'm waiting for them to go off the board. So that it kind of reduced some of that anxiety for myself, because I was like, all right, once they go, then I know I'm gonna go. And they never went. So we get to the 6th round, and yeah, I started having that. Well, they haven't gone yet, maybe. And then I started getting the calls from the people saying, hey, if you don't get drafted, you know, we'd love to have you as a free agent. Okay, I'm cool. I just want to get there. But then the 6th round come, and I get the call from Mike Shanahan, and, you know, he says, how would you like to be a Denver Bronco? I was like, well, Coach Shanahan, you know, I've never been that far out west in the mountains. And of course I didn't, you know, I didn't say none of that. Yes, sign me up. Sign me up. So yeah, I did have some of those moments just because of what I had been prepped with, but also that reduced the anxiety also because I knew where I was going to be according to what my agent had told me.
So you get drafted by the Broncos. You come in, and I think that was Shannon Sharp's last year. Was it his last year? Was he injured?
Yeah, he got injured that year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you get to Denver, and what was that like? That rookie year, you coming in, and I think they had, was it Chamberlain who was there as well?
Larry Chamberlain, Dwayne Caldwell.
Yeah, what was that like going into that environment of the NFL and fighting for that opportunity to play?
Oh, don't forget they had just won 2 Super Bowls.
Oh yeah, that is right. You coming into that environment, yeah.
Right. So it was intimidating. You know, just to be bluntly honest, I had never played a tight end position before. You know, my senior year, I lined up there a couple times in a couple games, but I had no experience playing this position. And then I'm coming into a situation where I have a future Hall of Famer, and those other 2 guys, they made Pro Bowls in their careers after, you know, Shannon Sharp left. But when Shannon Sharp got hurt in the Super Bowl, those were the 2 guys to step up and not drop off, not have a drop off for the tight end position. So for me, I'm thinking, where do I even fit in here? We only keep 3 tight ends. Teams only keep 3 tight ends. So for me, I was like self-sabotaging because all of my mental talk and all of my self-talk was, I'm not going to make this team. They're only going to keep 3 tight ends. They're not going to cut anybody. I mean, Brian Chamberlain is the future. Shannon Sharp ain't going nowhere. Dwayne Caldwell is the best blocking tight end in the league. They're set. So I was doing, I mean, the one thing I could do was catch passes and run good routes. No, I wasn't even doing that because just my mental makeup at that point was just shot. But I got it turned around and I started focusing on, you know, just trying to do what I can do and stop comparing myself to those guys. And once that happened, you know, I started to bring what I could bring to the table. And that's all I could do is bring what I could bring to the table. And it ended up being good enough. And they kept 4 tight ends that year, something that it was the first time I seen a team keep 4 tight ends.
Well, you played 12 years in the league. You spent some time with the Broncos. You spent the bulk of your career with the Bears, but you also spent some time, if I'm not mistaken, with the Dolphins. What is your secret? Because the average NFL career, I think, is like 3.5 years. How were you able to stay in a league like the NFL, essentially for 4 times the length of the average career? What's the secret to that longevity you have?
So what you got to do, right, is whoever your head coach and offensive coordinator is, you got to dig into some files, get a private investigator, and get some pictures of them doing some things that they wasn't supposed to be doing, and then you just stay on. So, no, but seriously, man, and I tell this story. I believe I told it in the book too. My combine grade was an F, 37 out of 100 F. Like I failed the combine. And I always say this, I was small for a tight end. I was slow for a tight end. I ran a 4.840 or 4.8840. So if you're gonna be small, you're supposed to be fast. And then I only did 12 reps of 225, which is terrible for a tight end. It's terrible for anybody, for that matter. So I believe the way that I made it when, you know, all the odds were stacked up against me athletically, going to a team that's stacked with tight end, is just that mentally, I got really, really sharp mentally. And my mental focus and just being willing to do what was required with the work that I needed to do. I coach high school basketball right now, girls basketball, and I'm always telling them, just do the work that's required. You know, don't complain about it. Coach said you got to do it, you got to do it. You know, you got to go and work out, you got to show up. It was only 1 year that I didn't make 100% of my workouts, and that's 2005. And I was, you know, I had a pretty good contract, so I knew I wasn't going to get cut. But when I when I got hurt, when I was working out down here in Florida, stress, brother, stress. Like, oh, what are they gonna do? What are they gonna do now? What are they gonna say? But just being there, being sharp, being on time, being a professional, being a leader, all of those things count. When I got my last contract in 2008, they said one of the reasons that they gave me that contract, and they had brought Greg Olsen in the year before, they said, because of all those things, that's why we're giving you this contract. We know that you could play also. When we know that we're going to count on you, I was still the starter, right? But we had this young first rounder coming up, and he was eventually going to take over. But they were rewarding me for being that professional, for being a guy who they knew I was going to help. Whoever they brought in, I was going to try to help make the best player that guy can be, because he was going to help the team. And just having that mental focus like that, and having that understanding that, man, I'm a team guy. You know, coaches don't. After my first year of Levy being in Chicago in 2004, I don't think a coach ever came and checked my hotel room at night. If they did, I was there. I never got in trouble. I didn't say stupid stuff to the press. And I was just reliable, and I held myself accountable, and they didn't have to. So those things go a long ways. I mean, just look at Dwayne Haskins, first round draft pick. They just released him. And I heard Shannon Sharp talking about this. It's like, all right, production versus nonsense. Production, nonsense. you done. And it wasn't like I was a perennial Pro Bowler, right? So my production was good, but I had no nonsense with me. Matter of fact, that extra, professionalism was here, and that brought everything else up also. And I believe that's really the reason why I stayed in the league for 12 years, is because I produced on the field, then off the field, they could count on me to do all the other intangible things also.
Now, I want to talk about a particular game in your NFL career, and that's the Super Bowl, right? So you guys are playing in Miami. So you're back home in Florida. You're playing for the Bears, and you're going up against the Indianapolis Colts. And everyone who remembers that Super Bowl knows it was a mess. The weather was atrocious. It was rain. But what I want to talk to you about is, what was it like to be at the Super Bowl, to prepare, but to do it now against your former head coach from college? What was that like?
Didn't even think about it.
For real? It never came up, never really crossed your mind?
It can't. Like, I'm focused, man. I'm trying to win the Super Bowl. I bet he wasn't on the other side thinking, oh man, Desmond's gonna be playing tight end. You think Coach Caldwell was talking about that? Nah, he was trying to get those quarterbacks ready to play. And in the same thing, I knew he was on the other side. But we could talk about that after the game. Matter of fact, we didn't talk about nothing after the game because I was a sore loser and I just went off the field. And I regret that, because that was my head coach in college, and I still have so much respect for him. But after that game, man, I was hurt. I walked off the field. I ain't talking to nobody.
Yeah, and you know what? I just remember that being who you are, not a sore loser, but nobody likes to lose, but just knowing you as a person and as a player, I know that fueled you. You took that and used it as fuel. And so I just wonder, what was that like to be in that Super Bowl, that space of preparing for that game, or just to be in that, it's one of the biggest sporting events on the planet each year. What was that like?
Yeah, first of all, it was fun, right? Because as a little kid, you wanted, that's, as a football player, you playing in the Super Bowl, right? So that part was amazing that you even get that opportunity. But as far as the preparation was concerned, it was just a focus, because this is the opportunity, right? Now you can't let this opportunity slip past. So you want to make sure that everything that you're supposed to be doing, everything that this team is counting on you to do, that you're prepared to do it. So day by day, I'm focused. It's just like if you're a bodybuilder, you got different parts of your body that you're training every day. That's how you do football. On Wednesday, you do first downs, second downs, then third downs on Thursdays, and short yardage go out on Fridays. And I was so locked in and so focused because this is the opportunity, right? But now you get to game day, and I always tell people, they say, man, what was your greatest moment of playing sports? And for me, it was coming out of that tunnel when they announced the NFC champion Chicago Bears. And all of us as a team, we come out and all of the light bulbs and things are going off. It's like a surreal moment. It's like, oh my goodness, like, damn, like this is what I used to dream about. And I'm actually here. And all these people are watching me, and like all over the world, like you got a couple 100 million watching this thing. And it took a while for like it all to like calm down and sink in. And typically before a game, I'm not that person that's overly hype or, anything like that. I'm kind of just focused, ready to go. But I had to take a moment before that game, like right on the sideline, right before kickoff. Ooh, boy, calm yourself down. Because it was special, man. That's once in a lifetime. And then the opening kickoff, it's like we take you back to the house, and it's like, all right, you got to calm yourself down, dude, because you got to go out here, you got to play. But I mean, just amazing feeling just to be in that moment, in that space.
So you have this great career at Wake, great career at NFL. You spend all of that time, playing this game, learning so many lessons. I want to fast forward a little bit to the book and talk about what brought you to the point where you felt that, you know what, I want to write this book, and especially talk about the way you decided to do it in terms of infusing so much of who Desmond Clark is as a person, your experiences. What drew you to combine the two with with principles of, just some principles of winning that you developed?
Right. So even before writing this book, I had been speaking on principles of winning for 6 years before actually writing the book. So the book was already in my head. And just to be transparent and honest about why I wrote the book is because last year, at the end of 2019, I said, look, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna speak professionally. Like I've already been getting paid to speak. I was like, but I'm gonna make this a professional endeavor for myself. And I said, any speaker that's worthwhile, most of them wrote books. And for me, it wasn't just to write a book, just so I say, hey, I'm a speaker. It was to write the book so people really understand the essence of what I talk about, where it comes from, where it came from, how it developed. So when I'm out giving it to people, they get it. A lot of people talk off of intellect, and we said this before we hit record. Man, I read this book, I read that, and data show this, and stats show this. I don't talk about no data. I don't talk about no stats. I don't talk about nothing that I learned, like, quote unquote, intellectually. I talk about stuff that I learned from experience. And I just wanted people to understand what that was all about. And not only understand it, but I feel like, man, I was put in those situations for a reason, right? And we all have these experiences. And me and you talked about this, a couple weeks ago. Man, we should share those experiences, because it's two ways that you learn in life. No, it's one way that you learn in life. You learn in life from getting new information. I'm sorry, let me rephrase. You grow in life from new information. That's it. That's the only way you grow, learn, develop, by getting new information. And you can get it from two different ways. You can get it from your own experience, and you can get it from somebody else's experience. Those are only two ways that you get information. So for me, I feel like I learned a lot from everybody else's experiences, which I talk about in the book. But hey, I had a lot of experiences that I think that people can attach themselves to and be like, huh, you know what? I can see myself. I've been in that situation. I actually thought about that before. This guy is saying, okay, this is how to apply it to him. Maybe that can apply to me too and make me even better than what I am today. So that's why I wanted to write that book, to share my experiences because of how I learned it, and then how I hope somebody else can take something from it and be even better than they are today.
Well, Des, I'm glad you've written the book. I'm going to share it with as many people as I possibly can. But I want to talk about what you're working on now. Well-known motivational speaker. When I look at your stuff online, I get motivated, but I also see that you are really beloved by the Chicago Bears fans. And I want to talk about what I want you to share with us when someone says, hey, I want to connect with Desmond as a motivational speaker. What can people expect? What is the Desmond Clark motivational experience like?
Yeah, hopefully it's different. Um, and it has to be different because my experience is different from anybody else's. But what I want people to get from me, right? And I'll talk about principle one is your name and your word, and that's basically your brand. So Desmond Clark is my brand. And I want my brand to be about authenticity. I want it to be about when somebody has an interaction with me, I want them to feel like, man, that guy made me feel like family. And then the I want to just whatever I have to give, and it's in my purpose statement, and it reads basically that with respect to within reason and with respect to my family. You know, you got to put that little part in there because people take that too far sometimes. You know, you say you want to help people with any resource or expertise that you have, and they say, okay, well, you got some money, why don't you go ahead and give me, you know, hold on. So I put that little snippet in there just for that reason, and it's on my purpose statement. It's on my materials that I send out. Do within reason and with respect for my family. But I want people to feel like, you know, if I have it to give, that I'll give it or I gave it. And when we have this interaction, I want people to feel like, you know, they got my attention. I want them to feel like that I respected them for their time. I want them to feel like that, hey, we're all someone special in our own ways and what we do as individuals. That's what I want people to come away with when they have an interaction with Desmond Clark. When they come and they approach me and say, hey, we want you to speak, I want them to leave. I want them to leave with the lessons. I want them to leave with the principles. But I also, you know, I don't know if this egotistical or whatever it is, but I want them to also leave thinking about me in that way that I just explained.
That's great, man. And for your motivational speaking and where you are now in life, where can where can Wake fans find you? Where can we get a lot of your stuff? And if we want to have you come and be a motivational speaker for different things, where can we find you at?
Man, if you can't find me, you ain't looking. I got my phone number all out there on the web and social media and my email all over the place. People like, man, you get your phone number out like that? I was like, yeah, because I got blocked if I need to. Just block somebody. Ain't no big deal. And I had the same phone. Smitty, I had the same phone number since I've been in college.
Wow, that is right. Because I don't think you've ever given me like a new number, like, oh, here's my new number. I had to change it. I don't think you have.
I haven't. I had the
That's
same
right.
one.
That's right.
You know what that means, Smitty?
What does that mean?
Stalkers. I don't got nobody out here chasing me down that I need to change my number for. I ain't done nobody wrong that I'll be like, oh man, I gotta change my number now. But you know what? I take pride in saying that though, because I do have the same number. And it's gonna remain to be the same because, you know, just what we talked about. I want people to look at me in a certain way. And if people are, if I continue to be who I am, which I plan on doing, I don't know why I would change. I had to think about it for a minute. I don't know why I would change, but yeah, it's out there, man. Yeah, I give it to you right now. 863-581-5161. 863-581-5161. That's the quickest way you can get in contact with me. Text me first, because some of these numbers, hold on. Hold on. I ain't picking that one up. They got to leave a message. Just text me first and say, hey, this is such and such. I went to Wake Forest. I heard this, and I just wanted to whatever. And then I'll pick it up. Or just email me, man. I had the same email since I got in Denver, which is ever since Gmail came out. And it's DesClark@gmail.com. DEZ.
Say it again. With Des Clark. Now, yeah, go ahead and spell it for him, because some people throw an S in there.
Yeah. And it's a guy in the UK that get a lot of Des Clark Gmail, and he'll forward it to me. Because they be trying to send it to me, and he'll forward it to them. So we got to know each other. But it's DEZCLARK@gmail.com. And if it's something about speaking, just send it to Desmond@DesClarkSpeaks.com. So yeah, man. And on social media, Des Clark88, DEZ Clark88 on Instagram, on Twitter, LinkedIn is just my name. Facebook is just my name. Yeah, I try to be as accessible as I can. I did get educated at Wake Forest, and I can talk.
Well, Des, I want to, before you go, would you mind sharing just some wisdom? I know in your book you have your principles, everything from the power of relationships to having passion and purpose, being motivated. But if you could give some advice to current student athletes at the moment at Wake, what are a couple of nuggets, some jewels that you would share with them?
I mean, right now where they are, it's all about building those relationships, man. And we're in an age right now where, man, that's hard, because everybody, I mean, Republican or Democrat, I mean, you're Christian, Muslim, or you're Black or you're white, or I mean, we got all of these different barriers, right? And what I tell people is, man, be curious about people, not judgmental. Understand why they said what they said. You may not like it, it's okay. There's a lot of stuff you're not gonna like in life, but try to understand why they have that thought, because it may be something that you can learn by. Be reliable and be consistent, because that's what people want to be around. They want to be around people that's reliable and consistent. And then another thing that people want to be around, and I believe this is why, I had really good relationships at Wake Forest and throughout my life, is because innately, I think I know that we all want to be our best. And then we want to be around people that's going to help us be our best. And I say that to say, man, be encouraging and be challenging of everyone that you're around. Challenge people to be at their best, encourage them to be at their best, because that's what people want. People gravitate to those people that make them feel good about themselves and make them better. And then the relationship part of it, I talk about this when I'm on stage. And in my purpose statement, I say, at every opportunity, transforming strangers, associates alike into extended family members. My mom used to say, as long as we got us, we have enough. We ain't have crap, but we had enough. And as life kind of, fast forwarded, that us became, man, if I can make us, all these people that I see, and make this like a big extended family, if we came out of what we came out of with what we had, and that was us, what can I accomplish and I can help other people accomplish if us is all of this right here? I mean, there's no stopping. There's no limit on it at that point. And I think that's right now probably the biggest lesson that a college kid can understand right now. Man, when you have great relationships, it ain't nothing that you can't accomplish. And when I say you, it's not about just you individually. because now you can call on the different pieces and people that you need to plug in the areas that you're not efficient at, in the areas that you don't know as much as you need to, in the areas where you have blind spots. When you have relationships, you don't have to worry about that stuff, because now you can fill in with other people. So, man, that's, for me, some of the relationships that I have, man, just amazing. And even you know, you don't talk to a person for 3, 5, 7 years, but if that relationship is solid, it don't even matter. You pick up just like it was yesterday, and it's all good. And those kind of relationships that you need to have if you want to go really, really far in life.
Well, Desmond, let me know when you start your congressional campaign, because man, that is awesome, man. So again, everybody, I want to thank you, Desmond. This is your book here, Principles of Winning, uh, five
5 keys to
strategies.
incentive excellence. Come on, Smitty, you
No,
messed up. Principles of winning, 5 keys to create.
no, I was trying to read it and not look at the but Des, man, thank you for tuning in. Hall of Fame, Wake Forest Hall of Famer. It has been great to have you on, man. Continue doing what you're doing, and we're going to make sure that the Deacs do all they can to support you. And we got to get you back to campus, man. We got to get you back to interact and really engage with all these student athletes and coaches and staff, and continue to push us and motivate us to be the best, man.
It's supposed
Desmond,
to happen this year, man.
go ahead.
It was supposed to happen this year, but
Yeah,
all the pandemic stuff happened.
we got to make sure we get that going again, man. We really got to make sure we get you back, man. But Des, it's been great, man. Appreciate you taking the time out of your day to talk with us, and just continue to do what you do, man.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on, man.